In April 1945, as the Red Army surrounded Berlin, a figure moved behind Hitler's inner circle, a man who guarded secrets, carried messages, and witnessed the Führer's final hours. His name, Roous Mish. For decades he lived in silence, but new revelations now beckon us to re-examine his story, and with it, what we thought we knew about the collapse of the Third Reich. This is not a tale of politics or grand ideology. It is a story of a man drawn to power by loyalty, trapped by proximity, and haunted by what he never revealed. What kind of person becomes Hitler's confidant? How do you survive when your world is built on lies and fear? And when the war ends, can a lifetime of silence be broken, or would the silence define you forever? Today, we trace Roous Mish's path from an orphaned youth to the bunker in Berlin, from captive to recluse, and we ask, was he a mere witness or a complicit keeper of dark secrets? The Last Witness. The life of Roous Mish and the truth behind Hitler's final hours. Let's begin. Before we dive in, if you enjoy deep historical investigations, hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell. And as always, the sources are in the description. Let's step into the shadows of history, the path to the inner circle. Roous Mish was born in 1917 in a place called Sisia, though by then, the maps of Europe were shifting constantly. He lost his parents young and was raised by grandparents in uncertain times. The Germany of his youth was a land of economic catastrophe, political turbulence, and mass disillusionment. Like many young men in the 1930s, Mish longed for certainty, structure, identity, purpose. He joined the SS, drawn in by discipline, and the promise of belonging. But in a regime that demanded absolute obedience, only a few rose above the rank and file. By 1938, at about age 21, Mish earned entry into an elite unit, the Leibstandarte SS Adolf Hitler. This was not your average security detail. This unit was entrusted with protecting Hitler himself, and only those who demonstrated fierce loyalty, reliability, and strength were selected. The standards were brutal. Recruits underwent intense physical training, mental conditioning, and were required to internalize a code of total obedience. Any hint of questioning or even hesitation could end your career, or worse. Through tireless service, Mish's role evolved. He became more than a guard. He moved into courier duties, then into communications. Before long, he was among the few permitted behind closed doors, operating Hitler's private lines, serving as a discreet liaison between the Führer and his command staff. By his early 20s, he had woven himself into the nerve center of power, but with proximity came danger and secrets inside the regime's nerve center. To understand Mish's role is to peer into the hidden mechanisms that sustained Hitler's war. He was not a strategist, nor a propaganda voice, but he held one of the most delicate, sensitive jobs, maintaining the Führer's private communications. He oversaw encrypted radios, secure lines, courier networks, and equipment that linked Hitler to the sprawling war machine. When generals telephoned urgent orders, Mish's systems relayed them. He was part of the channel, even if unseen. Over time, he served across key locations: the Reich Chancellery in the heart of Berlin, the Berghof in the Bavarian Alps, and the notorious Wolf's Lair in East Prussia. Each station had its own style, from opulent Munich retreats to hidden forest compounds, yet each demanded the same vigilance. In those corridors, Mish glimpsed the shifting faces of power. Himmler, Göring, Speer ministers, and generals moved past him daily, conferring, arguing, whispering. He watched as the regime's confidence gave way to tension. As the mood darkened, he was close enough to overhear murmurs about betrayal, panic, and defeat. In private rooms, he saw the toll of endless stress, exhausted aides, furtive glances, whispered accusations. But crucially, he remained in the background, a man whose job was to connect, not to lead, to facilitate, not to challenge. And yet, the closer he got, the more he understood that loyalty was a fragile cloak against moral pressure. The final days in the bunker. By April 1945, Berlin was under siege. The Red Army pressed inward. The Reich was collapsing. Hitler retreated into the Führer bunker, deep beneath the Reich Chancellery. Mish followed. Imagine descending into a sealed underground world, cramped, airless, tense. Outside, bombs echoed. Inside, the walls seemed to close in psychologically. This was the final fortress of a dying empire. In the bunker, Hitler's beliefs hardened. He refused to accept total defeat, insisting there had to be internal sabotage, betrayal, conspiracies. He blamed everyone, even his own generals. Mish stayed at his post, keeping the communication lines running. Messages crackled through. Orders. Please. Strategic chaos. He tried to maintain technical stability amid disintegrating structure. As days passed, conditions deteriorated. Food was scarce. Morale collapsed. The bunker's occupants shrank inward. The atmosphere went from disciplined to desperate. On April 30th, 1945, the last act unfolded. Hitler and Eva Braun died Hitler by gunshot, Braun by cyanide. In adjacent rooms, staff scrambled. Mish, in one of the nearby corridors, saw people carry the bodies to a small crater in the garden above. They doused them with fuel and set them alight, to prevent the Soviets from capturing them intact. In that moment, the bunker shifted from tension to hollow emptiness. The regime's final heartbeat had been extinguished. Mish, once an operator, now became a witness to the destruction he'd helped sustain, aftermath, and containment. When the bunker's doors opened, the war world vanished. The Reich had fallen. Mish emerged prisoner, questioner's quarry, living artifact of a dead empire. Soviet forces captured him. For about 9 years, he was interrogated, pressured for confessions, pushed to reveal what he knew. The Soviets wanted every scrap of insight about Hitler's inner workings, hidden bunkers, final orders. Under deprivation and duress, some stories crack, others hold. Mish gave what he could, but he also learned silence as protection. In 1954, he was released a free man, but world changed irrevocably. He moved to West Berlin, opened a modest shop, embraced the quiet. He receded from public life. To many, he became a ghost in the ruins, someone who once carried Hitler's messages, now carrying nothing but memory. The silent enigma, memoir and public comeback. Decades passed. Roous Mish lived in obscurity. But in the early 2000s, he re-emerged not in grand political forums, but in interviews and a memoir titled The Last Witness. In his narrative, he insisted he was a loyal employee, doing a job. He denied direct knowledge of the Holocaust's full horror. He claimed ignorance of mass exterminations, though admitted awareness of concentration camps in general. His portrayal: Hitler as a powerful boss, Mish as an apolitical functionary. He presented loyalty, obedience, distance. But scholars, historians, and critics pushed back. Could someone in his position really avoid knowing more? Was his framing of moral neutrality credible? Or was this a classic defense distance oneself from guilt by shrinking one's own moral agency? The debate raged. To some, Mish was a reluctant witness who endured. To others, he was a comfortable shield for culpability. Death and the 2025 revelation. On September 5, 2013, Roous Mish died at age 96. His death closed the personal chapter, but not the questions. In 2025, something unexpected appeared. A concealed letter found in his former apartment, in a sealed container, dated late 2012. It seems to contradict many of his long-held claims. According to reports, the letter alleges that Mish witnessed executions of political enemies without trial, some observed by Hitler, that Hitler authorized poison experiments, and Mish was present, though not participating, that Hitler may have had a young girl gifted to him. Murdered a claim Mish neither confirmed nor denied, but hinted might be covered in SS archives. That Mish carried a burden of guilt, seeing faces at night, hearing voices, haunted by memories. If authentic, the letter demands we reassess Mish's narrative. It raises urgent questions. Was he truthful? Did he conceal too much? Can a historian trust a man whose silence defined him? Investigators are now weighing how or whether to release full translations publicly. Holocaust educators call for transparency. Archivists warn of forgery risks, chain of custody issues, translation errors. But even in ambiguity, one thing becomes clear. The story of Mish does not end with his death. It is still being written by the evidence we unearth, the interpretations we test, and the memories we dare to question. Public debate and historical reckoning. So where does this leave us with a man who walked between truth and silence? On one side, defenders argue Mish was a witness, not a perpetrator. He claims he lacked decision-making power. He claims he could not refuse. They argue his knowledge of atrocities was limited, compartmentalized. On the other side, critics say proximity equals responsibility. Even if he did not pull triggers, he lent stability to a murderous system. They challenge the notion that moral disengagement is possible when you are that close. The hidden letter, if verified, edges us further. It suggests deeper complicity, or at least deeper awareness, than Mish admitted. It invites us to reassess how we treat followers in totalitarian systems, how we parse the boundary between duty and guilt. In the broader historical narrative, Mish's life forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. What do we demand of witnesses? How do we balance empathy and condemnation? Can silence ever be innocent? Today, we don't end with tidy answers. We close with the recognition that in the ruins of authoritarian systems, memory is fractured, stories clash, and the final word often belongs to evidence, not narrative. Closing/call to reflection. Roous Mish was not a monster, nor was he an innocent. He was a man who walked in shadows, yet left a trail. His life is a caution about loyalty, proximity, silence, and the weight of bearing witness. In the decades since the war, we have shown that evil often needs more than tyrants. It needs enablers, connectors, people who move wires, guard doors, keep secrets. Perhaps the most unsettling question is, if a man like Mish stood so close, how many of us are closer than we realize?